Taking a minute. Hi there. We are live and we're late. We're a little late because it's been a while since we have actually done a live. Like COVID, we were doing this a lot, and now we are doing our best. Sorry, I'm doing two things at once here. So now you have my full attention. Hi, everyone. If you're
Hi.
tuning in, this is Katie.
Hello. I don't think I've ever done a live, ever.
Are you serious?
I'm just pretending it's not happening. Yeah.
Even on your own? So this is just a Zoom
No,
call
on
with
my
me
own,
to you.
never. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I can confirm that we are live. Yay, it
Oh, you can see us.
Yes.
Okay.
So if you are tuning in, we would love to get your questions. We're going to be talking about Easter. We are going to be talking about how that correlates with faith, and we'd love you to ask your question. We're going to do our best to answer them. So Easter's coming up. So let me just actually give context. I'm the Young Parents Director, and Katie is actually what we are calling our discipleship coordinator. But another word for it or description might be like a pastor, somebody who does spiritual care and conversations with us. And I see my staff, nice to see you. We see another Facebook user, nice to see you. Please, if you have questions, we're going to do our best to answer those tonight. So Katie, what is Easter?
Yeah, big question and a good question. Well, Easter is a celebration for sure. And I think that whether you have Christian roots or not, it tends to be a time that we come together and celebrate. In the Christian faith, it's kind of a pinnacle moment for us in our calendar and the reason why we do it every year is this constant need to be drawn back to it and to remember it. And so for Christians, it is, first Good Friday comes. So that's the Friday before we celebrate Easter on the Sunday, but the Friday, and that is a day of remembering Jesus' death on a cross, which is so incredibly removed from our context right now and what that means. And we can talk more about that a bit later. So it's his death, and that's deeply meaningful. And then the celebration on Sunday is of his life, physical resurrection of him, of an empty tomb. And so that's what we celebrate at Easter. And again, there's lots we could dig in for a lifetime about what it is, but
I have about 5 questions coming out of that, but maybe you have anyone tuning in, if you have questions about what Katie is saying or we're talking about, we would welcome them. It can be a bit of a stump the chump opportunity for Katie.
I'm the chump. Thanks.
Yes. Only if you're stumped.
Which is possible. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. We want these faith conversations to be really easy, like open. We're all exploring together, and we want this to be a safe place for people to ask their questions. So not really a stump the chump. That's not very good. But we want to welcome even the hard questions as well.
Yeah.
But okay, so you're talking about that, and I go into a store and I just see bunnies and I see Easter eggs and I see chocolate, which are all wonderful things, but I don't get how that connects to what you just talked about. Do you have any ideas?
I mean, I don't know for sure where that came from. I have some theories and I'll share those in a minute.
Okay.
And for most people, they don't connect, but I think that they can connect. I think we can have bunnies and chocolate and eggs and all of that and have it in a meaningful way that helps us reflect on the Christian real true meaning of Easter. So where did it come from? I don't know. I think that Easter is a spring celebration. So it's like, there's always tulips and it's all the pastel colors of the spring flowers. There's chicks. There's like, it's new life and this sort of like, excitement of spring kind of, and bunnies and chicks are a good representation of that. And the reason I think that we can connect it to how we celebrate Easter as Christians is because the celebration of Easter is the celebration of new life. And it's funny because, we talked in preparation of this, but literally I was coming up my stairs to come meet And my youngest son said, "Mom, why do we have eggs at Easter?" Because they're all excited about their Easter egg hunt too. But he goes to a Christian school, and so they're going to be talking about their theories. He's 7, so they're going to talk about their theories about the egg, why we have eggs. And again, it could come from some ancient pagan ritual of spring and fertility celebration. But I do think that the egg in particular is this sort of like opening to new life. That's what an egg is. There's new life inside. And when we think about spring and the flowers coming up, I mean, today was a crazy weather day, but it looks dead outside. And then, but it's a reminder that there's new life coming. You start to see the green coming up. So whether or not that it comes from that, I don't know. But I think there's no need to take away the fun, like what we think of the fun parts.
Don't take my chocolate away.
No. Oh, and chocolate is just an add-on to any good celebration. So that I don't know.
That's just a piece of celebrating well.
Yes. It always includes chocolate. But yeah, I think that those sort of symbols of what have become like Hallmark symbols, like, I mean, Hallmark by like, the card company Hallmark, like, the eggs and bunnies and even the basket that has the little greenery sticking out of it. I think we can look at those and recall the new life that we celebrate at Easter and this freshness and this anticipation that spring brings.
Yeah. So just want to put out to anybody who's watching, if you have a comment, if you have a question, we would welcome it. I know we're not on here for long. This is a bit of an experiment that we are doing. If this is a way to engage in conversation about faith, a one-on-one conversation, the basics of faith, and knowing that we are a Christian organization who cares about these things, cares about your spiritual, your spiritual health and how that's a part of holistic health. And so we want to make sure that you understand and we have these conversations together and that this is a good place to have them. So we would welcome your questions. But I'm curious too, when you talk about Jesus and you talk about the word resurrection, what does that mean for us? Why is that important to us as people who would call ourselves Christians or followers of Christ?
Yeah, I think it's deep for one, but on one hand, the promise is of resurrection for followers of Jesus is new life and new creation and being able to participate in that. I don't think that we would have much to celebrate if Jesus stayed dead. Yes, he was a good man and we can look back and be inspired by that, but it is the celebration of, death is the one thing it's unavoidable in our life. And yet it feels unnatural to us somehow every time, especially when it's tragic and too soon. Death just always feels like this part that isn't supposed to be there. And I think that's in us because we're searching for something that gives us true life. And so the resurrection is a promise. It's kind of the first of what's to come. And so you might say, okay, well that's great. So I live my life and I'll die and it'll come. But there's also a resurrection within us now that occurs when we know Jesus and understand the sacrifice and really begin to understand, because again, it's a long process of learning and discovery, of uncovering. It's like an Easter egg hunt. You're still looking for the eggs all the time, forever. And it's kind of fun. But of figuring out, I think there is a kind of a lifelong exploration, but there is a now part to the resurrection that brings new life in us and ignites a hope and shifts our perspective on how we live, how we view other people, how we view our own broken world. And it doesn't necessarily change the circumstances of it, but it can give new life to us within that broken world. Does that make sense?
Okay, I think so. I'm hearing words like hope and promise. And
Yeah.
I think you kind of showed us something like an avenue to accessing that hope for ourselves. Like how can we find, I mean, that's very hopeful to think that Christ died, which is probably the worst thing that could happen to a human.
Mm-hmm. In a horrible way. Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
And then he rose again. And within that is obviously something extremely powerful, but also how does that hopeful for the common everyday person and their family? How do we make the leap from that to how we live?
I think
I'm asking you the big question.
That is a really big question. Well, it's a lifelong thing, but it's how do we make the leap? I think it's not even understanding, because we don't ever fully understand, but we're invited into that. We're invited into, again, changing. God, when Jesus comes, he announces that his kingdom is here. And then he starts doing all these things that don't look like any kingdom that we know of. Like, he's not looking for power. He's not killing everybody who doesn't agree with him. And in his death and resurrection, it gives us this completely upside down way of seeing. He lived till complete sacrifice of himself. And that's like his enthronement in this kingdom. And so I think what it invites us into is radically shifting our perspective. If we choose to live in that kind of kingdom, it doesn't promise no suffering. And again, this could get really deep and we could go for a long time. It doesn't promise no suffering, but it does promise life within it and a purpose. I think when we are slowly uncovering who God is and who he made us to be, we start to dig out. We can feel our purpose within that as human beings. And in that, when we start to realize how God created humanity and the purpose that he has given us, we start to realize that it doesn't matter if my circumstances are less than ideal. It doesn't matter if I've failed in certain ways, that created purpose is within us. And we're invited into that in this Easter story, into this life that might be complicated, but there's hope and there's promise in it. I feel like I'm sort of all over the place with that answer, but I'm just trying to read some comments.
Yeah, I know it might feel distracting too, to be seeing some of these comments, but somebody said, it doesn't say who it is, but by taking baby steps, I think that picking up the Bible and just holding it for a while, then opening it and then reading it and then finding your people and entering a community and fully entering faith and steps become your journey. Yeah, there are, we talk about baby steps in our young parents groups, and how community, baby steps, and God's grace is 3 powerful things for an empowered life. And so this seems to be right along with that idea. And when we hear that story of Jesus and believe it ourselves, then we can enter into the promise of new life. Like, this is what Easter is about. This is what we celebrate. Do you have any further comments about that? Like, I think about our young parents and their kids, and they're trying to make something meaningful. They're probably building traditions. They probably, by the way, if any young parent right now wants to share a tradition that they have for Easter, we would love to hear it. So Katie, for you, have you done stuff with your kids? Have you?
Yeah, well, we often, we get together with family, and church is always a part of it. So we go to church on Good Friday, and then again on Easter Sunday. And Good Friday usually is a more solemn kind of service, doesn't necessarily attract the crowds. But Easter is a big one. Like our church usually has 1 service. We have to go to 2 just to fit all the people who come and celebrate. And it's encouraging, even thinking not everybody really knows what they're here for. There's still something that's like, this is a time when we need to go to church and celebrate. So that's cool. So church is definitely a part of it, and just that celebration with the community, because community is such an integral part of Christian faith. And then my family, we usually get together with my extended family, and the kids do an Easter egg hunt of sorts, and there's chocolate around and good food and all that.
Chocolate around.
At least any celebration needs to have chocolate and good food. So those are our celebrations. And with my kids, we also read the stories and I ask them questions. It's always interesting, or they ask questions. It's always interesting to hear what kinds of questions they have as they get older, and try to process it. It's a weird thing to process, somebody dying and coming back to life. Even as an adult, it's a weird thing to process. So it's there's, kids have interesting questions. So
yeah, and they have lots of insights too. So it's actually a really interesting thing to talk about with our kids, because they have wisdom to offer. They
do,
that childlike faith that accepts it in ways that we struggle with sometimes. I think it's actually a beautiful conversation to have with them. They're not afraid in the ways that we can be to have the conversation. I know that when I have, here's a tradition.
With egg is popular in Polish traditions after Lent. Cool.
Yeah, food, this is fascinating. I think that's interesting. So when I was little, I got a new outfit and a hat, like an Easter bonnet. That's outfits. Showing how old I am. and then
you rode your horse and buggy to church.
And shiny shoes. And then when I had my girls, newness was kind of the theme. But I think as I grew in my faith, I wanted to attach traditions, not just to be about, not just to be about what's passed down, although that's important, but also how it connects to faith and how it connects to something very meaningful. Because tradition is fine and good in and of itself, but when we attach it to faith and our spiritual well-being, I think there's something really powerful about that. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, and I think, when you look at the Old Testament in the Bible, God calls the people of Israel to do these things, certain things every year. And again, we can sometimes say, well, tradition loses its meaning, but there's this constant going back to things. So even if it's not directly connected, even if it's, well, I have ham every Easter or whatever it may be, it's this these little things that trigger us to remember and to think about, what do we do? Like, what encompasses our celebration? I was always forced to wear a flowery dress my mom made. Those kinds of things. But it's like, which match my teenage sisters. Steph, I feel like I've seen pictures of you and your sisters in matching flowery dresses. But I think I always wear a flowery dress at Easter too. But we remember those things. Like, we remember those experiences and remember them specifically within the context of Easter. And I think we have similar things for Christmas, right? Like, if you have a specific tradition at Christmas, it draws you back into the memory of, like, what is that celebration that we're doing.
And how do we build on it? Like, now that we're the parent, that we're the ones with the children or the child, and we want to make things meaningful for them. So passing on those traditions, but also understanding what we believe is an essential part of that. And I think that's the challenge for each parent, to say, what do we believe about this? Because it's actually part of our responsibility. Another thing that our heritage or inheritance that we offer to our children is our faith. What is that we believe, and that can be a really beautiful thing, obviously. But I think these traditions kind of help us take the next step. And I think that's what we're about when we talk about this. We want to make sure we provide an avenue to you and to our young parents to ask the questions, to explore what they believe as their parenting privilege to pass on to their kids. I won't say that 5 times fast. But a lot of P's in there, but
and I think if you have slightly, it's different if you have toddlers or something because they're little. But if you have a little bit older kids, even like school age, 5, 6, 7,
Mhm.
and you don't feel like you don't know what you believe, or you don't know,
Mhm.
I think you can explore those things with your kids, and you can read a children's storybook Bible
Mhm.
with your kids.
Huge. Yeah.
And those things are helpful to us too, to sharing that with your kids. Your kids are learning. Your kids might ask questions that you didn't think of, and as you are contemplating and thinking about, I don't even really know what this is, I think I think there's beauty in exploring it together, because like you said, they sometimes ask questions that we wouldn't, or ask questions that don't feel like we can ask.
Yeah.
So I don't think that you have to wait until you know what you have, or know everything, because we never do, first of all. But your kids will always stump you with questions. Like, they're the ones who are going to make you the chump when they're asking questions all the time.
Yes. Oh, that's a
But
hugely important. Go ahead.
that's okay. And I think
yeah.
letting your kids see that, I think we have this concept that faith is believing in something without any evidence of it. And I don't think that that's what Christians believe at all. We believe in the resurrection because of testimonies of people who saw the resurrected Jesus, and faith is more about aligning yourself with Jesus and his way. And we kind of go like this and like get back on and off of it all the time. And we're always welcomed back into it. But I think with our kids, we can be on that journey with them. And so if you're just starting out, you can take your kids along. And I've heard such beautiful stories of adults now who remember when their parents became believers, and they know that journey that their parents were on. And there's something really deeply impactful, I think, for children in seeing their parents try to discover truth. Yeah. So I think if you are apprehensive because you don't know what you're talking about, then that's totally fine.
Yeah. I want to leave that there. We said we go to 20 minutes. We're at the 20-minute mark.
Yeah.
But of great importance, your traditions matter. You can build on them with your children and explore faith together. You don't have to have all the answers, but just do not be afraid to enter in. There are things for you to discover. The message of Jesus is for you to explore, and we're also here to help you with that exploration. So this is Katie's number one role, is to help our young parents who want to explore faith to do that. So we would really encourage you to reach out at youngparents@yugta.ca, or you can message wherever you're watching this. I think we're just on Facebook this time, but Facebook Messenger, we will respond. You could set up just a one-to-one conversation with Katie, or ask your question by email. That is totally fine. That is great. We would love it. But we hope you have a wonderful Easter. We hope that it's a meaningful celebration, and that you can get curious about the reason why we celebrate it as Christians, and who Jesus is and who he could be to you. So do you have anything to add, Katie?
I don't think so. No.
Okay. Well, thanks for your time
Easter,
tonight.
everybody.
Happy Easter. We'll talk to you soon.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye.